fellow female activist. Cathy here, your wellness coach, and she is stoked today. So this is an extra, so no PQs today. But I was so exuberant, I was so excited at my results that I wanted to share them as quickly as possible. So the title here basically is about Health Advocacy 101. I want you to be your best health advocate, right? I am my own best health advocate. You should be your own best health advocate. You live in your body, right? So in the extras, I don't usually go into PQs, okay, PQ repping, as usually these are more about like moments in the political spectrum, right? In this case, I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate my win, and hopefully it will inspire you. So, Health Advocacy 101, that's pretty much why I'm here for you. I am a wellness coach, okay, for my fellow female activists. And I want you, okay, to be your own best health advocate, right? So, Health Advocacy 101. The best example just happened today. Now, I've had this happen already, 2 out of 4 times that I've now completed a colonoscopy, and I am exuberant. One, most important because there's nothing wrong with my colon. Thank you, Jesus. But two, how I went through the screening. So just a little backdrop. It is difficult to talk about, but since the age of, I think I was 33 when unfortunately my mom went to heaven, based on being diagnosed with advanced colon cancer. And even the word, uh, weighs heavy, right? But through my own training, that words obviously have power, right? I also know that affirmations, I also know that mental fitness, right, can keep me in the right state of mind that then helps my overall health, right? So I believe in 2007, when unfortunately we lost our mom, um, I was probably like 33, might be 34, I can't remember, but I was young. That same year, in the fall, she passed away in the spring. And then in the fall, I signed up, or rather, I arranged for my first colonoscopy. The doctor that time was incredulous that I would even bother. He's like, "You're too young." I'm like, "I don't care. It's my body." That was my first step to health advocacy. Now I have before then always been a really good advocate for myself when it came to my health. But in this case, I was very much going against the grain, right? But he should have been at least more welcoming to the idea, simply because when someone's family member, right, or rather when there is now history of some type of, unfortunately, diagnosis and it ends not well, right? Then that family history then brings the family altogether at risk, right? So I was given the opportunity, right? I mean, I got it scheduled and I was awake for that first colonoscopy. Now, it actually ended up being what they only went halfway. Weird. Now, I will admit I was given a muscle relaxer, but I was up. And I do remember that really all the muscle relaxer did was just let me slow down, right? So that I was not anxious. So the doctor thought he knew better than I did. I didn't know what a colonoscopy was like, but I was certainly not afraid to get it, right? And I wanted to be awake. Again, knowing what had happened, unfortunately, to my mom, I wanted to be very aware of what was happening during the screening. So knowing that it was only half, I guess that's why he let me stay awake, let me, right? And then we went through and it was fine. And then because of my high risk, I am still expected to go every 5 years. Well, I should say, definitely, because I had started the screening, now you go every 5 years, right? Unless they find something, then you would go every 3 years, so forth and so on. So, the second colonoscopy that I had was like around 2010, I believe, maybe 2011. And that one was the full colonoscopy. And no matter how hard I was trying to advocate for myself to stay awake, the doctor refused. And basically, he treated me like a child. I mean, quite honestly. And that did not make me feel well. And possibly because I was already perturbed, right? Not realizing, oh, well, I could always try it with going to another doctor, right? Getting a second opinion, so forth, so on. But I didn't really know how to advocate for myself too much. So I went ahead, I was sedated, and that was not cool. So thank goodness, knock on wood. Once again, the colonoscopy came out fine. But my experience because of being sedated was not fun. There are instances where when someone is under even light sedation, one, they can get nauseous thereafter. In my case, my memory, which is some of the side effects, right? My memory was gone. And from the time, or rather, I should say, from the moment I was sedated on the table, right, on the operating, or what they call the bed that you're on, until, right, I was all of a sudden realizing that I was at my dad's house and he was trying to help me eat soup. Like, I don't recall ever waking from that moment on the bed until which time I was cognizant and realized, whoa, I'm at my dad's house, right? And he's helping me obviously try to eat. What had happened was that someone like me, maybe because of my type A personality, maybe because of just whatever, right? I have high anxiety to begin with. All of those different factors led to what sometimes happens where you're basically blacked out. So I don't recall in recovery, I don't recall even like anything. All I know is that my subconscious was working. Obviously, I was cognizant enough and awake that the nurse, possibly helped me dress. Then I went out to where my dad was, and then he brought me back to his house, right? And because he was my driver. That experience was horrific for me. Why? Because of how my brain works. I don't like not knowing what's coming. Now, some would say, oh, well, she's a controller, right? And whatever. But honestly, I'm just like a type A person. I love order. Okay. I love organizing, right? So the idea that I did not know where my body was for over 2.5 hours was so unsettling. So as much as, and I even told the doctor once I went the next week to get my results, why they just don't give you your results. Or they do now, but back then they didn't, or at least I don't recall. The doctor was condescending. He's like, "Oh, it's no big deal." I'm like, "No, it was a very big deal. I told you I didn't want to be, put to sedated, and yet you still enforced this for no good reason." So my third colonoscopy, this time again, a full colonoscopy, I fought tooth and nail. I had to fight with the nurse, I had to fight with the anesthesiologist, and I fought with the doctor. The agreement was, okay, the anesthesiologist will be in the room, right? Watching me like a hawk, which he did, while the procedure happens. And if in any time I don't think I can handle it, then yes, I would be given sedation. I was a champ. Let me just tell you, that third colonoscopy was slick. I was working as a team with the nurse, the anesthesiologist, who was just sitting there, but very much aware of what I was up to, and then the doctor. The doctor was skilled. He included me as part of the team because while I was awake, I was able to help him guide how much air he was pumping into me. For anyone who's not familiar with a colonoscopy, and really, I think a lot of different screenings, they use air. They will basically pump air into whatever organ they're looking at so that they can get a better, bigger picture, right? So there's a little scope, and you literally feel like a adult etch sketch when that scope is in you. It's discomforting. It's not so uncomfortable that there's a lot of pain, but there's discomfort. Humans, okay, have been taught that somehow being uncomfortable is a bad thing. No, assuming that there's nothing broken in your body, right? And that you're not bleeding out, being uncomfortable is part of growth. Okay. So, third colonoscopy, spectacular. The doctor even said it afterwards. I'm going to start bragging to all my patients that maybe they don't need anesthesiology, right? They don't need to be sedated. Now, absolutely understand that not everyone wants to go through a colonoscopy awake. I get it. I'm not saying that you're weak. I'm not saying that that's wrong. What I am getting at is that being a health advocate for yourself means that you put your foot down and say, this is what's right for me. Again, all of my sisters have now had colonoscopies and they all prefer or were okay with sedation. Good for them. I'm very happy that they had their screenings. I, on the other hand, want to know what's going on, not because I don't trust the team. Okay. And this time there was 4 people. I mean, it was brilliant. There was the doctor, okay, who actually performs, right, the colonoscopy, and then there was his assistant. Then there was a nurse, who I guess was the room nurse, and then there was the actual anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist would have gone in there, but her nurse was there just to monitor me, i.e., to watch me like a hawk to see if I was going to need to be sedated. This colonoscopy, one, again, so glad everything came out fine. But again, number two, I had to advocate. This one wasn't so hard to advocate. Again, I was told through, you know, all of the appointment setting, blah, blah, blah. Oh, but they don't let you stay awake. They don't let you stay awake. Repeatedly, I'm told, you're not allowed. You're not allowed. Well, they may say that, but there are also instances when someone cannot be sedated for actual medical reasons. I knew someone who had actually got to have a surgery because of hemorrhoids, or I believe it was hemorrhoids, or also, I forget. Either way, it was somewhere down below, right below the belly button. And because of their asthma, the doctors were not able to sedate this person. And so the doctors said, hey, we're not going to be able to sedate you. You're going to be, given a local, deal with it. Guess what? It still happened. The surgery went well, everything was fine. And yes, the individual, because they were not sedated, they came out of their recovery faster. Quite literally, like not only did they come out of obviously they were awake during the operation, but they came out of their actual post-op faster. They healed faster. A nurse who got me to start thinking again about when you're sedated for any type of screening, right? Or again, her she was a 30 years, she was a RN nurse. And her premise or her main point was she knows that it's not the procedure that's harsh on the body. I mean, it's still trauma. It's the actual anesthesia. That medication must circulate through your whole body before it's flushed out. That means you're putting a lot of extra stress on your organs, on your mind, simply to flush out what didn't necessarily have to be there. The nurse, who I'm talking about to you, who gave me this idea of if ever I had procedures below my belly button, this was her theory. If the procedure is below the belly button, even if it was a minor surgery, she refused sedation. Why? Because she knew that it was not the procedure that was going to be rough. It was going to be that post-op trying to get rid of the sedation, i.e. the medication that they give you. When you know yourself so well, and I know myself very well, I knew that the discomfort that I was going to experience for 26 minutes, because that's about how, on average, how long a colonoscopy takes, assuming everything is, fine, on average, they're around 26 minutes. So if I can endure being uncomfortable for 26 minutes, I'm okay with that because here my brain is alert. My brain is focused. Being that I practice mental fitness, being that I'm a yoga practitioner and a yogi, I actually instruct yoga, I knew how to use my breath the whole time. And yes, the clinicians were telling me, okay, keep breathing, deep breathing. But it was marvelous because I was asking questions of my own body, and the doctor in real time was telling me what was happening. I say all this because it was such a wonderful experience. I was so empowered each time I was awake because I was able to ask questions. I got my answers from the the experts, right? The doctors that were performing these procedures on me or in me, quite literally, right? But there was empowerment each and every time I was able to see my own body. I got to see inside my body. I was like, this is remarkable. If anything else, how many times do we wonder what's going on in our bodies and we take it for granted? I have the opportunity to be able to see what is happening in my body. So let me go back to that nurse, that 30 year tenured nurse. She said that if there was any type of procedure, screening, minor surgery that was below the belly button, she would prefer to stay awake. If, in fact, there was a procedure above her belly button, she said, yes, I want to be asleep. There are times when it doesn't make sense at all to have someone not sedated, right? Um, Interesting enough, right? When someone's having some type of brain, right, procedure, the person is put to sleep initially so that if they need to, the skull, right, can either be drilled into or in some way, shape, or form, right, altered. But once the actual like procedure is going on in the brain, there are no somehow, right? There are no nerve endings, or I forget how it works, but basically the brain doesn't feel pain. And so someone can be awake quite literally while they're being operated on or whatever the procedure is. So from time to time, yes, you actually will be expected to be awake during any type of medical procedure. But the reason why I bring this up, I'm not bragging. There is a very specific reason. The title of this is Health Advocacy 101. If you can't fight for your own body and what you want done to you, right? Then how do you expect to advocate for anyone else? I'm not saying that you won't or that you can't. A parent may never experience the same, inconveniences or trials that their child will, but they're going to still advocate as much as possible for them. I get that. But when you can advocate for yourself, for your own health, when you know yourself so well, I was adamant that I was going to go through this procedure without medication because I knew that my brain was more worried about not knowing instantly what was happening versus waiting. I did not want to wait. And I did not want to experience time just disappearing on me. So, yes, I was awake for my colonoscopy. Yes, it was totally awesome. Um, Everything was fine, thank goodness. Now I can take a breather, right? But I wanted to take this victory lap for myself and share it with you because it's the little wins like this. I see this health advocacy 101 win, okay, as a win for, or rather, for democracy. Why? Because we have autonomy, okay? Yes, they could have put me in sedation, but just because they can doesn't mean they should. It's okay for others, but it's not what I want. I want today, ever so slightly, for getting rid of patriarchy. How? Because most sciences, right, are dominated by males. Now, I have nothing against the doctors that performed the colonoscopies on me. I'm very grateful. They were very gifted. Um, I was very excited and gave kudos to my doctors, and they were men. Um, there's nothing wrong with that, but I purposely wanted to show that what happens to my body is up to me. Now, yes, again, had I needed to, they would have sedated me. And I knew because of my past experience that I would be fine. 26 minutes of discomfort, okay, was all that it took to keep me and my nervous system at a good level, okay? Health advocacy, okay, should never come with you telling someone what they what you think they should do. Health advocacy, you are your best health advocate, right? So what's good for you may not necessarily be what I would choose, and that's okay. But I like to work with women and let them find out how they best can serve themselves, support themselves. Yes, I'm there for them. Absolutely. And I use mental fitness. I use lifestyle organizing, right? Different tools that you can then add to your toolkit of mental and physical health so that your wellness, your overall umbrella of wellness is so full. Health advocacy 101. Fight for you. That's the main point here. I didn't get as much pushback as I did the prior colonoscopy. This one was a lot easier. And I think what was why, right, in all of the paperwork and all of the prep, they tell you you're going to be sedated, you're going to be sedated. That's capitulation in its smallest, most intricate form. Now, again, I'm not saying that there's any nefarious reasons why they prefer people to be asleep. It is the actual wish of the doctors to keep us as comfortable as possible. Well, if you're asleep in some way, shape, or form, you're not going to notice anything. So you won't feel discomfort. But my awareness was more important in the moment than being sedated. So why do I bring this up? Because health advocacy, it's not always going to be about, comfort. What's going to make me feel better? Well, let me rephrase that. It's going to be about how can I advocate for myself in such a way that I empower myself, right? It would not have empowered me to be sedated because it would have taken me too long thereafter to recognize what had happened. Okay. Um, I also have like my tummy doesn't like medicine, right? I've never liked medicine. So again, one other reason not to be sedated. But health advocacy comes in many shapes and forms. But what I like to think about is that every time a female stands up for herself, especially in a medical situation, this is us totally in defiance of fascism, patriarchy, white supremacy. When we tell others in authority, nonetheless, in the medical field, that we know best for our bodies, in some instances, right? Then we get to work as a team. I felt so empowered. I wanted to high five everyone. There was 4 other people um, in the room with me, helping me in this medical screening. And I'm very grateful for them. And what was cool to me was that there was diversity, that there was not just females, but there were males, right? And we were a team. And I want to bring that home because health advocacy 101 is all about creating your wellness team and realizing that that team is going to change periodically. And you get to work with that team to serve you. Again, they're your team and they're there to help you win. So don't take no for an answer unless you really, really fight. You can at least tell yourself, okay, I went to battle or I went as far as I could. I advocate for myself and then this was the result. You can at least stand tall and say, I stood up for myself. Maybe the outcome isn't always going to be what you want, but I know that right now I want big for democracy. I want big for women's rights. I want big to show authority. You work for me, not the other way around. So, Health Advocacy 101, realize how much power you really have. Empower yourself as often as you can and understand that just because there are rules doesn't mean that you can't use them to your advantage. Okay? So with that, I am ready and willing in the comments if you want to meet with me. And my Zoom link is below, and you can, or sorry, my Calendly link for my Zoom calendar. You can check me out and decide if you would love to learn more about how I help fellow female activists with their wellness advocacy, right? I want you to be, again, your best health advocate. I want your wellness umbrella to be very, very fortified, okay, and strong so that we can get through this mess that we're in and thereafter thrive. I want you to thrive now so that you can thrive even more once we've saved what's left of democracy or restored our democracy, right? So with that, you can sign up for a discovery call with me, and or if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer any questions, and give you any tips you might want about how to advocate for yourself, but also how to, again, reevaluate how you see being your best health advocate and doing so with mental fitness so that it's a longevity type of situation and you get better and better at it. And then the lifestyle organizing that's going to help you even more as we get more and more intense with saving democracy. All right, so we will see you soon. Until then, take care, take charge, God bless.